BMW N55 engine powers almost every series BMW, but how reliable is it? Should you be worried if your BMW comes with the N55 engine? Let's dive into common issues, best and worst years to buy, how to properly maintain it to avoid disaster in the future, as well as what my personal experience has been like living with this engine. BMW N55 engine is the successor to the N54 engine and features many changes, mostly concentrated on making it more reliable. It has powered everything from 1 Series to 7 Series cars, including hybrids, SUVs, and many sports cars. There are a few different versions of the N55 engine, producing power figures from 302 horsepower to 365 horsepower, depending on the supporting components and tuning. But the problems are mostly common across the range, unless I specify otherwise. I will not be discussing Alpina engines or the S55 engines used in the M cars. I want to start by saying that BMW N55 engine is solid and one of the more reliable BMW engines nowadays. But it did not start that way. There were some teething issues on the early engines and a few common ones until today. One of the common issues on the early engines was oil starvation, causing spun rod bearings and in most cases destruction of the engine. While it's not impossible to catch it early on and replace the bearings preventatively, if you actually spin the bearing, you will most likely cause damage to the crankshaft and the entire engine has to be rebuilt. Luckily, this issue isn't nearly as common on 2014 and newer engines, as BMW seems to have upgraded to the rods and rod bearings that were previously only available on the N55 B3000 version of the engine. Many of those early N55 engines starved of oil for a few different reasons. Some say it's because of running the engine too hard on cold oil, running the car on low oil, or pushing the engine way too hard, or simply due to manufacturing defects. Another common issue on early engines was the high-pressure fuel pump. Issue-prone N54 style fuel pumps were used on the N55 engines as late as 2013 year model. In 2014, it was upgraded to what the N20 engines were using at the time and what the newer B58 engines use now. This finally solved BMW's high-pressure fuel pump issue on all later cars. I would suggest making sure that the original fuel pump was replaced under warranty or upgraded to the newer design. Signs of a bad fuel pump are similar to that of a bad spark plug, ignition coil, or injector. The engine is starved of gas and will run rough, stutter on acceleration, or completely stall if it's really bad. High-pressure fuel pump is hard to get to, but with one of those endoscope cameras, you can easily check which pump is in your car by going under the airbox and under the intake manifold. One problem that's common across all years seems to be the plastic charge pipe. You may have noticed how most BMWs with this engine have an upgraded metal charge pipe installed like this VRSF one, and that's mostly out of necessity. Mine broke right where it connects to the intake manifold, but it's common for these to burst or crack unexpectedly even under stock boost. For this reason, as a preventative measure, most owners choose to upgrade it to the metal one, and some go even further and upgrade the intercooler and the boost pipe at the same time. If you're looking to do the charge pipe only, it's a simple DIY you can do at home in a couple of hours. Another issue that has been carried over from the N54 engine is the valve cover and the valve cover gasket. Both N54 and 55 engines use a plastic valve cover which goes through thousands of heat cycles, causing it to degrade and crack over time. It's common to need a replacement around 100,000 miles. However, the gasket will most likely fail sooner than that, so most techs recommend replacing the valve cover at the same time, especially because the PCV valve, which is right there, is built into the valve cover and is prone to failing as well. If you do your own work, you can probably get away with just replacing the gasket as long as the cover is not cracked or warped. Since the labor is the expensive part here, it's a doable job at home, but you will have to remove a lot of parts to get some of those bolts in the back there. In very much the same way, the oil filter housing gasket is another issue carried over from the N54 engine and is common on many other BMW engines reaching 100,000 miles. This gasket should be replaced as soon as a leak is detected, otherwise it will leak onto the serpentine belt, which is just below, causing it to fail and get sucked into the engine through the front crankshaft seal. The oil pan gasket seems to be a little bit more reliable, but checking for oil leaks from under the car is not a bad idea. This engine, like many other BMW engines, uses an electric water pump which does not have a very long lifespan. Unfortunately, these fail at random and usually at the worst time. I had a couple of these fail on my previous BMW, and you get about a 2-minute warning before the car goes into a limp home mode and cuts power to the engine so that it doesn't overheat. You will hear the cooling fan ramp up to full speed and most likely a message on the screen telling you to pull over. And that's basically it. Just like a lot of modern engines, BMW N55 has variable timing. And on this engine, it's controlled by double VANOS system, which means both intake and exhaust camshafts can be independently adjusted. This is very cool technology and what makes this engine so smooth, efficient, and powerful. But unfortunately, the VANOS solenoids that are located just right here, pretty easy to get to actually, can fail electronically or get clogged by dirty oil. This one is a little harder to troubleshoot as symptoms are rough idle, hesitation and acceleration, loss of power, and other common engine is not running well symptoms. These can be easily removed and tested though, so I recommend checking this video where I show how to test and clean the VANOS solenoids. That's all I have for major common problems on the BMW N55 engine, but there are a few less common and less major issues I wanted to mention. The coolant hose return line can be a failure point as it's made of a cheap plastic and starts leaking with age, but luckily there are aftermarket upgrades that can be had for $15 and easily installed yourself. Another one that can be done easily at home is the coolant tank that sometimes separates at the seam and starts leaking. This one is more common on the E-Series cars. The pulley tensioner can also be problematic as it starts rattling, and in my case, the idler pulley became whiny at idle as well. When replacing either of these, replace the serpentine belt at the same time. Lastly, the Valvetronic servo motor and the eccentric shaft sensor can both fail and cause the engine to revert to running, well, basically like a standard engine using the throttle body. The engine will not perform efficiently and can be a little rough, but it will still continue to run until it is fixed. As far as my personal experience with this engine, I bought this BMW 335 knowing that I had a spun rod bearing and wanted to learn. Unfortunately, it was too far gone, so I then bought another engine locally that also had a spun bearing, which I actually rebuilt. I suspect this car was abused, but my friend who had a 2013 Active Hybrid 3 with the N55 HP version of the engine had the same issue where the rod bearing spun and locked the engine. That car was actually really well taken care of and not driven hard. Anyway, I rebuilt this entire engine and learned tons through the process. It also taught me a very valuable lesson on what to avoid in the future and gave me a little bit of insight on how it actually works. Since the rebuild, the engine has been perfect. So what can you do to keep yours running for years to come? The most important thing you can do for this engine is change the oil and change it often. Most recommend using high quality oil every 5,000 to 6,000 miles and always warm up your engine before putting excessive load on it. If you are pushing your car hard or have it tuned, flush your coolant every 5 years and change the water pump every 60,000 miles to keep the car running cool. If you see any oil leaks, address those as soon as you can to avoid further damage to the engine or the accessory belt, which should also be replaced after about 80,000 miles. BMW has gotten bad rep for reliability in the past, and rightfully so in many cases, but this engine is significantly more reliable than its predecessor. In fact, it only got more reliable throughout the production years. But what are the best years to buy? In my opinion, unless you like tinkering with cars, I would go for the F chassis cars which are 2014 or newer, and avoid the older e-chassis cars like this one from 2009 to 2013. Also keep in mind that there is no average N55 engine, and it's still a car and things do break that you can't plan for, such as a sensor. There have been thousands of early N55 engines that have never had any issues, just like there have been thousands of newer engines that have had thousands in repairs. It all comes down to proper maintenance, not abusing your car, and, well, a little bit of luck. If you'd like to see the entire journey with this car so far, click on this playlist, and if you'd like to see how I rebuild this entire engine, click on this video right here. Also, for those wondering, yes, the car is getting painted next week after waiting for a shop for about 2 months now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.